And on this episode of the Monday Mindset Rants, we're going to discuss love involves responsibility, not defamation. Justice for Johnny. Johnny boy, good old Johnny boy, has been vindicated. So, this is a a major victory, not just for Johnny Depp, but for men who are victims of abusive relationships in general. And I'm not going to say that, Johnny Depp is a perfect individual. I mean, if anyone who watched the trial, and I'm sure many of you watched this trial, as, it was, a iconic event and a deep dive into the Hollywood elite's, personal life. And, I knew about this situation, I think way back in like 2018. I knew about the depositions and those videos of her, or the recordings of her basically admitting, you know, I didn't punch you, Johnny. I hit you. And back then I was like, oh man, this is crazy. And then, life went on and circle back, and here we are. And it's an important thing to acknowledge, what this trial represents. And it's just that, like I said earlier, this entire man's life was taken from him. And he didn't even get a chance to speak his truth, so to speak, or say his side. And, he even said it in the trial when he was like on stand that, like, even if he did win, it doesn't matter. The damage is done. That's 6 years of his life that he won't get back. Opportunities, I'm sure they'll be coming back now, but that doesn't matter. That's 6 years of his life taken. That's the equivalent of like an innocent man spending time in prison. And metaphorically, he was, in a sense, in a sort of exiled prison, almost like a penal colony for people who've been canceled, if that makes any sense. But this is strange, brave new world we're living in. And it's just wild to me, because I don't know how anyone cannot see this situation and see it as a real clear example of why we need to see the evidence and then make a decision based on what the evidence provides. And I mean that for anything in our life. We need to take time and really analyze the situation and see what's going on and what it has to offer us. And and I think this is what's fascinating about this whole thing, is that if you are just think about it as Johnny Depp has the funds to defend himself, but think of all the average blokes out there who have been in a similar situation as him, who were not, are not, and still not able to defend themselves. and clear their name, because they are, for lack of a better word, they don't have they can't afford to clear their name. So they're shunned and exiled. And, maybe not they're able to recover. But I mean, how often is that the case? And, even he has said recently that he's still shocked that he won. And listen, I knew he was gonna win. All right. The the moment it came out that this woman took a dump on this man's bed, I was like, nope, no, she lost. I mean, also considering the fact that she lied on the stand, and most likely committed fraud, and you know didn't give money to the ACLU, worked with the ACLU to pen this op-ed, all that other stuff. But I mean, the pooping on the bed. Come on now, that's crazy. I mean, the psychologist even said that this woman has borderline personality disorder and histrionic disorder. I think that's what it's pronounced. I mean, but all of that is besides the point. What's mainly important here is the and I've seen video thumbnails discussing, like, is this the end of the Me Too movement? And I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. That doesn't matter. What matters here is the fact that, you know, this is one prime case, an example of some of the things that men have to go through in relationships, in dating, in the experiences that we have. And I'm no stranger to dealing with abuse from being in a relationship with a narcissist. So I can in some manners relate. I've never had my finger chopped off, or a woman take a you know take a poop in my bed. Like, come on. But I mean, but it paints a picture of, and this is something that I think is funny, and I think I probably said it in an earlier rant, that you can have all the money in the world, but that don't mean you can escape toxic relationship. And I think this is a real prime example of that, of the dangers of getting involved with a very unhealthy individual, and the consequences of that. And every single person that came to his defense was like, no, this is not true. He's a good guy. He may have his faults, but he's a good guy. And here's a man who's all he's been trying to do is just clear his name of abuse. This man has been abused for 6 years, being abused. Think about that. For 6 years, he has been openly mocked and abused by society, by Amber Heard. Think about that. What does that do to somebody's psyche? Especially a man in that caliber. But just imagine, he wasn't isolated. He had friends, people who supported him. But imagine being, someone who's in a Johnny Depp, but he only makes 50 grand a year or 100 grand a year. He's going to be isolated. He's going to be shunned. He's going to be humiliated. I can't pronounce that one. But he's not going to have anyone who's going to support him or believe him. Maybe he will, but they won't say it openly. So what does that mean for him? And that's the thing that matters to me about this is that it shows that the things that this girl was doing, all right, you could talk to an average bloke on the street and he'd be like, yeah, my ex did that to me. That was like a normal Tuesday. but I couldn't do anything about it. I said break up with her, or she would threaten to do this, or she threatened to do that, and that's all I had to say. I mean, how many guys have been caught up in that kind of scenario, where the woman uses the abuse that she inflicts upon him against him? How often are we seeing women do those kind of things? And how often are they absolved of any harm, absolved of any responsibility or accountability? And even if they end up going to trial or get arrested or anything like that, how often has that happened? That men are men are openly allowed to be mocked and ridiculed in comedy through sexual abuse. I mean, think about that. Think about the history. Think about it. Think about and this plays into this whole scenario. How he was saying he would express that he's being abused, and people would downplay it or not even acknowledge it. How many men have experienced that, and people downplay like, oh man, that's just how women are, dude. Man up, stop being a baby, stop being a wop. Sorry, I'm looking something up. Yes. So there's a wonderful film. I mean, the film, about a wonderful documentary called Sexual Assault of Men Played for Laughs.
Under the radar. Let me explain.
By Pop Culture Detective.
This episode comes with a very strong content
and
discussions of
this kind of plays into what I was talking about.
There's a surprisingly disturbing trend running through a lot of mass media entertainment. A trend that often flies under the radar.
Really under the radar.
Let me explain. You're watching a popular TV show or movie, laughing along at the hijinks.
You got that?
When suddenly things take a jarring turn.
They always do.
Check out the new meat. I'm gonna slather you up in Navi jelly. Go to town.
Wait a minute. Was that a rape joke?
I'm gonna slather you up in Navi jelly. Go to town.
Yep, certainly was.
Certainly was indeed.
Maybe it's just an anomaly.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Us riding into the sunset, it ends with me dying of cancer and you winning the Icebox Award for softest mouth.
Whoa.
That's another rape joke in another superhero blockbuster.
Oh my God.
Let's try something else.
Whoa.
Don't drop the soap, big homie.
Ugh.
Where will you be watching World Consume Me from?
That's right.
A prison cell. I'll send you a bar of soap.
Oh,
How
Iron Man
about we
2.
try a comedy instead?
Relax and open wide.
Oh, Sausage Party. Oh my God.
Let's switch to a TV show.
As soon as you drop the soap, they rape your butt. That's what happens.
Whoa. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. It is a clear indicator, and this is from the male perspective now, that I just showed you. But what's clear about that was what I wanted to show was how in kind of male driven comedy or action films or what have you, and some of those you've heard, how often do men make jokes like that about just about that kind of how often do we see that in comedy and stuff like that, jokes like that made up towards men, and that it's okay. And you just heard that in Guardians of the Galaxy. That's a kids film. That's PG-13. I mean, we got people who went to see that with their 10-year-olds, and they're hearing jokes like that. And it just plays into what I'm saying about why men who are victims of sexual assault, it is oftentimes played down. And I'm not talking about children. I'm talking about men and young men, 18 and older, essentially. And that was part one of his thing. But let's hear a little bit of part two. And it's from the female perpetrator's perspective.
This episode comes with a very strong content warning for frank discussion of and media clips involving
Rape and sexual harassment.
As we saw in our previous episode on this topic, there's a pervasive and long-standing pattern in Hollywood of playing the sexual assault of men for laughs.
Mm-hmm.
No, dear. No, dear. No. Oh.
Just relax and we'll get along fine.
You guys, it's raping me!
Oh.
See, I got molested by D!
This is about to get weird.
Let's relax for a second. Let's just stop.
These type of jokes are a staple in gross-out style comedies.
When's the last time you Purelled that thing?
On television sitcoms.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna grind you like a fresh cup of coffee.
What? Uh-oh.
And in certain animated TV shows.
No, I'm abstinent. This is an affront to the Lord. No!
See?
In part one, we noted that when men are sexually assaulted, it's usually done by other men.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why our first video focused on male perpetrators.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you haven't seen that one yet, I recommend doing so before continuing to watch this one.
Okay.
You have a seat, Dale?
Oh.
Do I have to?
Horrible bosses.
Where men are sexually assaulted by women.
See about that.
Oh my God.
You think rape is funny?
No,
Oh.
I think it's awful. Unless it's a woman raping a man. That's inherently funny.
Raph, are you just gonna sit here and let this happen?
Just like we saw with humor about male perpetrators, humor invoking female perpetrators
Mindy
can
Project.
involve a wide range of
Oh my
non-consensual
God.
behavior.
She's just kissing a passed out man.
No.
Help me! Whoa!
Oh.
Oh!
You're fine, you liked it.
Neighbors!
From casual jokes about sexual harassment
You're a shooting star, and I want to go for a ride.
I'm so afraid right now.
to punchlines about rape.
Last night, I sat on his nocturnal erection while he was sleeping. Okay, in some cultures, that would be considered rape.
Yeah, pretty much in every culture.
Oops.
And
Wow.
in many cases, the so-called joke
You did all this while I was unconscious?
Yep.
is the act of sexual assault itself.
That's my favorite.
Rape. What? Rape. That's a rape. This is what raping is. You're a raper and you raped me. That's a rape. Rape.
Just relax
Yep.
there, Jodie Foster.
Please, I'll give you whatever you want. Please, anything you want.
Anything I want?
Wow.
Occasionally, these comedic scenarios will involve supernatural rape or sexual extortion.
Wow.
But even in those cases, the assault is treated in a conspicuously flippant way. There's no lasting trauma, and the incident is rarely, if ever, mentioned again.
And so I highly recommend you guys go online and check these out. I'm gonna have to do a little editing. But the whole point is how often when sexual assault is done on inflicted upon men, it is downplayed, it is laughed at, it is brushed off. And these examples that you heard, even in films that you can go and look at, Horrible Bosses, the first one is a perfect example. Go watch that whole thing with it's messed up. Or even with Vince Vaughn in Wedding Crashers, where he's literally tied to a bed and sexually assaulted by a woman. And it's laughed at. I remember laughing at it, thinking it was funny. Hell, part of me thought it was a little hot back then, but I was younger and, horny. But the whole point I'm trying to say is that this is it allows for when real situations happen to be brushed off, and then men are just ridiculed or laughed at or told to man up or deal with it, and it's shameful. If you think of any of those scenarios, imagine the scenario in Horror Bosses with God, what's her name from Friends, Ashton Kutcher. What's her Christian Bell? What's her name? You guys know who I'm talking about. The only one that became successful out of all the Friends cast. But you know who I'm talking about. She's in Horrible Bosses, and the dude from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Charlie. She literally, he's she's the dentist and he's her assistant, and she literally knocks him out. And as you heard him, she took pictures of him naked, and she's on top of him, and things like that, and laughing and like, oh, these are all my favorite photos, taking selfies. She's on top of an unconscious man naked, and think about that. It's hilarious. It's funny, but reverse that. And if it was a man who did that, and that was part of the comedy, the actor, the director, the executive, they'd all be fired and in prison, and the film would have been shelved and blacklisted and all this craziness and lawsuits and all that. But if it's a woman that does that, it's okay. And this is what I'm trying. The bigger point is, it doesn't matter if it's sexual assault. It doesn't matter what type of abuse it is, but from that men are experienced and are told to deal with it, or to get over it, or to man up, or to put her in her place. And so we have to just allow our mental health, our confidence, our security in ourselves be eroded and abused and destroyed for someone else's gratification or passive aggressiveness towards us, or past trauma, or what have you. No. And as we saw in the Amber Heard trial, in Johnny Depp trial, there's video footage of her smiling when one of the one of the witnesses is talking about how she used to abuse her sister, and she's smiling about it. Like, think about that. There are people like that in this world, men and women. But right now we're focusing on from the male perspective. And think about that. Her own mother was scared of her. Her mom went to her grave scared of her eldest daughter. How effing crazy is that? Think of how crazy is that? Everyone was scared of this woman. Everybody was scared and intimidated by this woman. And think about that. Think about being an average man in a relationship with an average woman who's similar to Amber Heard. And he is trying to navigate, either trying to get out of the relationship or somehow survive this relationship and hold on to what little dignity he may have left. It's just disappointing how when this happens to men, it is just it's laughed at, it's blown off, it's cast to the side. And I feel like this trial and him winning, it signals a shift in the conversation and in the culture that needs to be had. That everyone is are victims of abuse. But we also need to acknowledge men and what they have experienced in their abuse. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be sexual. It can also be, it can be psychological. It can be verbal. I mean, this man also experienced verbal abuse. She literally said, "Who's going to believe you? Tell them, Johnny, tell them. No one's going to believe you. You're an old man." All of this stuff. She even scared his child, yelling and freaking out in front of him. I mean, he may have said some crap about her and all that kind of crap, but like, he wasn't doing that in front of his child, so to speak. from what I've heard, but I did hear about how she was reacting in front of his child and how he was complaining to her about it. And think about this. The man always tried to leave, tried to defuse the situation, and she would claw and drag at him and refuse to allow him to leave. Think about how many men have been in that same situation, tried to leave, and then they get accused of assault, or they get injured, or they get assaulted, they get beat up, they get hurt. And how often do they maybe file a police report and stuff like that, and nothing really happens? It happens to men as well. But and this needs to be this case needs to shine a light on that this happens to men as well. Like, sorry, you can't believe all women, because she has done so much damage to actual women of abuse. And how are they supposed to move forward with this now out in the open? Think about that. How this affects actual women of abuse. That now people are going to be questioning whether or not to actually believe real women who are experiencing abuse, because this whole thing is now going to hang over the shoulders. It's disgusting what she's done. It's disgusting. It's asinine, to say the least. Literally, she literally is asinine, and she dropped an asinine fucking thing on his bed. This is crazy. This is madness. This is Amber Turd. But I don't know, man. It's just wild. It's wild and it's sad. But this is this situation is a double-edged sword. It is a victory and it is a loss. Yeah, it's a victory for men who have been victims of abuse, who now can find the confidence to perhaps stand up for themselves and to seek, some sort of, closure, and that's what really matters. Yeah, it's great that Johnny wins, but this is also a bigger win for many men out there who can now, if they're able to, sue someone who has ruined their life through lies and deceit and what have you. And this is a loss for women because, like I said before, how women, actual women of abuse, who are see this play out. How are they supposed to move forward? How are these organizations that supported her? How are they supposed to move forward now? I know some of them are doubling down, and maybe not, but this is the conversation that needs to be had. And I'm not necessarily the one to have it or to start it, but I'm just sharing my thoughts and perspectives on all of this. But also saying that we need to acknowledge this. We also need to acknowledge how disgusting it is that films and TV shows have normalized making fun of men experiencing sexual assault. It's not right, and we know that. And I wanted to bring that out there for that discussion to be had, and also to compare it to this situation. Because think about it, when she said in those depositions, "Go out there, Johnny, say it. Who's gonna believe you?" Think about that. Because she knew, a part of her knew, that there was going to be a portion of the population that wasn't going to believe him. And then think about that. You're an average guy, and you go out there and you say that this happened to you, and people don't believe you, or they think you're stirring up trouble, or you're spiteful, or whatnot. And how crazy is that? And that actually recently happened. I saw a headline about a story about a kid rushes to he rushes to accuse a girl of sexual assault. I'm gonna look this up because I wanna bring this out there for y'all to see. Sorry. Yeah, here we go. Let's see. Is this it? But yes. Okay. Male. It's from Reason.com. Male student accuses female student of sexual assault. She says he wanted revenge. The University of Cincinnati suspended a female student for allegedly engaging in non consensual sex with a male student who claimed he was too drunk at the time to approve the encounter. The fact this case involves a male accuser and a female aggressor makes it unusual among title titles. I don't know which one. Title 9. I don't know. I'm not good with Latin numbers. It's a federal statute that forbids sex discrimination in schools. But the female student's lawsuit against Cincinnati, which accused the university of violating her due process rights, reveals something even odder. Roe had, well, they're not naming them, so Jane Doe and John Doe. Roe had previously filed a sexual misconduct complaint against one of Joe's friends. Roe's lawsuit then suggests that Doe filed the complaint against Roe as a kind of revenge for getting his friend in trouble. So, if you. Let's just keep on reading it. The author of the article says, I have an alternate theory, but I'll save that for the end. One information on and behalf, John Doe was motivated to file the complaint in retaliation for a prior complaint Jane Doe had filed against his friend. Roe also contends that it is ridiculous to find her guilty of non-consensual sex because of Joe's drunkenness, but not find Joe guilty too. Roe was also drunk at the time, so under the rules, she was just as unable to consent to sex as he was. While this might seem like a paradox, how can two young people, you know, you know, grape each other? It would actually be a straightforward application of affirmative consent, which requires all participants in sexual encounter to proactively obtain freely given and ambiguous consent before proceeding. The encounter between Roe and Doe took place in 2017. They went to a party together. They went to his bedroom where Roe fell asleep. Doe eventually crawled into bed and initiated sexual contact with her. After allowing him to touch her, Roe asked if there was anything else you want to do. He said no and then went to sleep. Keep in mind that this is Roe's account and she is the accused. Joe went to school, filed a complaint against Roe, had engaged in sexual activity with him while he was too drunk to give consent. Philip informed the girl that she was under investigation. Since neither party disputed that sexual activity had occurred, the only relevant matter was whether Joe had been able to give consent. At a hearing, the university determined that he had been intoxicated and thus it had no choice but to suspend Roe until his graduation. Roe filed an appeal and was denied. Roe said that she was being punished for engaging in sexual freedoms that men on the campus enjoy. It might be more accurate to say she's being held to the same standard, a standard that is for many reasons horrible. Roe's theory that Joe's complaint was a form of revenge is interesting, and it could be true. Perhaps the whole thing was a setup. He lured her to his bedroom, feigned drunkenness, and initiated sexual contact while fully intending to race the title office the next day. No one wounds me with impunity style. Here's an alternate theory. Doe woke up, realized they had engaged in sexual activity while they were both drunk, and feared that she would file a complaint against him, as she had done to his friend. Panic-stricken, he felt he had no choice but to beat her to the punch. Indeed, if you suspect you are going to become the project of a sexual assault investigation, the optimal strategy may very well be to file the first complaint. For reasons not completely clear to me, the administrators often appear biased in favor of the initial complaint and presume the other party is the wrongdoer. So this is a really interesting article, and this is what this plays a part into this whole scenario of, this is a weird situation, but like, think about that. Okay, they were both too drunk. Who knows what really happened? And I like that last theory. And I heard this conversation briefly being held on the Timcast podcast. They were talking about this exact same story, and it's just like, this is now the world that we're living in, and this is the world that, the actions that Amber Heard has done is now going to create these types of scenarios where, maybe they weren't even drunk, but they still got nervous, or someone, felt compelled to file, this, the assault, and it just makes it so harder for people to be able to, you know, for real justice to be served, for people to be, cleared and vindicated, for people to be like, proven, innocent until proven guilty, or at least, pending pending the investigation. Like, we need to wait. If there's clear and open, honest proof, then it's kind of there. And I mean, I think this Amber Heard trial proved that to be the case. I mean, despite the fact that she was assaulting and abusing him, I mean, she was blackmailing him, abusing other people, her own former assistant. I mean, think about this, and think about how many other women out there in this world, and men, but women in particular, who behave similar to Amber Heard, and they do not deal with any consequences or accountability. And there is so much of that. And men are constantly forced to be held accountable and forced to deal with the consequences. But for women, then it's either laughed at, brushed off, or, well, that's how it is with women, or, grow a pair or whatever. And it's upsetting. And I wish that, and I hope that this brings this conversation to light, that people really need to start having this honest and open this conversation about these kind of things, and that men are victims of abuse. And we cannot take it lightly, especially when men are openly seeking help, or it is obviously clear that the man is experiencing abuse. But this culture that we live in the society that, is producing men in certain cultures, it makes it damn near impossible. But especially here in America, it's really disappointing and it's sad. But I really hope that I just hope that it just brings to light that we need to have deeper conversations about this. And, we need to realize that this is a serious situation, but we also need to realize also, for regular people, that, hey, you know what? They can experience toxic relationships, abusive relationships as well. It doesn't matter how much money you have. This it really has shed a light on it. Doesn't matter how much money you have. You can't escape certain things of our world. You can't escape abuse. You can't escape ridicule. And, I hope that for people who don't have the kind of money that Depp has, or the kind of money that Amber Heard used to have, can feel a little more relieved in the fact that, maybe they're in a much better situation. And I'm not playing in terms of like, and I should clarify what I mean by that is that if you're in a healthy relationship, but you don't have all that kind of money, you should be grateful that you are in a healthy relationship, and you may be, living paycheck to paycheck, but you're not experiencing the abuse and the secret recordings of one another and all that craziness. You may be struggling, but you're not struggling the way Johnny Depp was struggling, or the way Amber Heard is struggling with her copious amounts of narcissism and mental illness that she's dealing with. And I'm not saying I feel bad for her. I don't really feel bad for her. I mean, what we're seeing is who she is. We just saw her true colors. I always say, wait till they show you their true colors, because then you know who they really are. And that's what Johnny Depp wanted. He wanted us to see the true colors. And we all watched, most of us have watched her lie multiple times on the stand. All right? We got to give it to Camila Vasquez, because she definitely killed that turd on the stand, if you know what I mean. But, and this also kind of plays into, just like, everything that she did to destroy this man's life in the hopes of propelling her career. And we saw on the stand, she's not even a good actress. She can't even cry. How hilarious is it that she tried to cry, couldn't cry, and then had her acting coach come on the stand and pretty much say, yeah, she can't cry for shit. And boom, bada bing. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And think about it. I can't get over her saying that. I didn't punch you. I hit you. That's a crazy thing to say. Okay? Imagine if a recording and it was a man and a man said that. Done, set, matched. Be a done deal, he'd be in prison. And I'm just the double standard of these kind of cases and situations. It's really disappointing, and it's sad to see that. And I hope that Killa Camila Vasquez and the other guy, I don't know what his name, Big Ben maybe. I think his name was Ben. So I'm just gonna call him Big Ben. That maybe they take more cases like this. And take cases of average guys who have experienced this, so that they can have their name cleared. Even though the damage is already done, at least they can have that at least everyone can know that their conscience has always been clear. And I think that's also the big point, that for Johnny Depp, his conscience is cleared in the open. Everyone knows that this man's conscience was clear, and it wasn't him. He wasn't. I mean, they were she was quoting and plagiarizing films of sexual assault. She even plagiarized her former assistant's experience of sexual assault and used it in her own story. How crazy is that? And even the psychologist breaking down how they will, do these kind of, these acts. It's just crazy to me. And think about the guys out there who are dealing with average chicks who behave like her. And some of them can't even get out of it. Some of them are married to them. Some of them have multiple kids with them. Or there's multiple women with kids who are like that. Think about that. So, this is just a really clear example of why this conversation needs to be had. And why people need to push back and see that this whole Me Too movement and this feminist movement, it doesn't seem like it's doing a lot of good for people, and I mean that for men and women. And I think this shines a very bright light on that. Because she was one of their mascots, and and now their mascot has been, you have been found, you have been cheating, and the verdict is in. Man, I was trying to make a reference from A Knight's Tale, but I can't remember it. But I don't know. I just, I hope that people will continue to have this kind of conversation and really start looking at their social media, look at their movies, especially, earlier with those examples from those docs on YouTube. We need to start having that conversation because it's getting wild out there. And they're allowing things to happen that are completely unethical and really go against the fundamentals of what it means to be human. Um, and I hope that we look at Johnny Depp's experience, and we don't look at that as a man who is weak or pathetic, because there are people in this the manosphere. I don't you know I have indulged in it from time to time, but that is not my cup of tea. I have taken peeks in there, here and there, at it, but it is not my thing. But even they were ridiculing ridiculing Johnny Depp and calling him a beta. And I'm like, excuse me, this man is experiencing abuse. Men who experience physical abuse, verbal, sexual, psychological abuse, that's not being a beta. You're not a beta for experiencing abuse. It's asinine. And I would say to any men out there, be careful, listening to the manosphere. Take that with a grain of salt and some self-reflection and critical thinking skills, because those cats, just be careful out there, just be careful listening to those cats. I'm not naming names right now. I mean, and plus you know I'm a nobody. I'm just your humble Ronin. But we have to call out and dismiss men and women out there who consider what Johnny went through, consider him like a beta or pathetic or weak, or didn't have his woman in line. What are we talking about? This is an abusive woman suffering with severe psychological, narcissistic, mental disorders. There ain't enough testosterone to rein that in. It's foolish and asinine the way some people talk and ridicule victims and men of this type of abuse and experiences. It's ridiculous. And like I said, we just need to have these kind of conversations, and we need to push to have these conversations. Yeah, I get it. It's uncomfortable, but we need to have them because this is the reality of the situation that we are living in. And Amber Heard is a perfect example of what countless men go through in so many different scenarios in relationships and in dating. There are many, many men out there who have similar stories to Johnny Depp, and all you have to do is ask around, and you'll get some wild stories. I have some wild stories myself, and it's unfortunate. And when I spoke to my therapist about some of the stories, he told me, well, it sounds like you were dealing with someone who would be is clinically needs clinic who would need clinical psychotherapy for narcissism, as he put it. And I was like, okay then. So I'm not the crazy one. And that's what they do. They make you look like you're the crazy one, narcissist. And that's what she did to make with Johnny. She made him look like he was the crazy one. And that's what narcissists do. And if you sorry, my chair went down. And if you have been in a relationship with a narcissist, you know that that's what they do. They make you seem like you're the crazy one. They make it seem like you're responsible and you're the reason for the way they treat you. And she literally said that to him. Think about that. And it's just sad that there are so many men out there who are dealing with it, been through it, and they can't speak out for fear of being canceled or ridiculed or exiled or shunned. And I hope that this allows that conversation to be had and acknowledged. And I'm just one person, you know, and it needs to be had. People need to discuss these kind of things in open forum, and with a mindful attitude and self-awareness to what they're saying to one another and to themselves. And that's the most important part, because with that story with the college kids, I mean, this is how it's getting. And think about that. I mean, how many situations have men been subjected to revenge like that? And how many women have been subjected to that? The whole revenge porn thing. I'm sure there are plenty of men who were subjected to that as well, but there were no consequences for the women. And we need to have that conversation. Okay, we need to have the conversation of of women being held to the same standards as men. I mean, that girl in the article said she was exercising her sexual freedom that men have. And I'm like, that's a crazy thing to say. There's a lot to unpack in such a comment that she has said. And that's something that we need to think about. That now, whether you want to look at it from the whole feminist political, ideology. I mean, but like, if women are thinking like that now, that's just how all men are. That's a dangerous precedent that's being set, and that they can be then absolved of any responsibility if they do in fact sexually assault someone. And we're seeing that. It's crazy how much of this is going on. And we need to have these conversations. And there are people out there who are actively trying to shun these conversations. They don't want these conversations to be spoken. They don't want people to be speaking out about this stuff. And they have their own agenda. And this is not a socio-psychological, political, podcast. We just do rants here, and sometimes a mindful rant includes some political and social commentary. And that's all I'm trying to say, is that we need to discuss these kind of things. We need to really acknowledge this and acknowledge the culture around it, and how dangerous and how poisonous it is, and how it's becoming, and how it's infecting everyone. And I who knows, I may catch some heat for some of the things that I say here, and that's okay. But like I said, these are all my perspectives and opinions. But some of the things that I've spoken about are part of the essential reality. And I know that we live in a time where disillusionment is in high demand and highly profitable. But here at the Monday Mindset Rants, we speak in the essential reality. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Monday Mindset. To learn more about myself and how you can support the Monday Mindset, head over to my Patreon page at Ronin Art and Music. That's Ronin Art and Music. If you're interested in reaching out, follow me on social media. On Twitter, Ronin Art and Music, or at me at Kios Ronin, KioosRonin. On Instagram, follow me at RoninArt_music. And if you prefer to email, hit me up at themondaymindset009@gmail.com. That's themondaymindset009@gmail.com. And that is all lowercase. If you're listening to this on your preferred streaming service, please make sure to subscribe. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment and a review, and slap that notification bell. On Apple Podcasts, please make sure to subscribe, rate the podcast, and leave a review, as this will help me and the podcast grow. Stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.